Hi there. Thank you for joining today's session. So wherever you are in the world, we appreciate you taking a little bit of time to join us for today's session. This is the 2024 Fortra State of Cybersecurity Survey results. It's our inaugural survey. It's actually pretty cool to be a part of that. So hear a little bit more about what customers and partners across various industries and in different parts of the world are thinking about and the challenges that they're going to be facing and the things they're going to be tackling this upcoming year. So a few housekeeping items that we want to go ahead and get out of the way right now. This session is being recorded. So if you happen to miss a section because you got up and refilled your coffee or you refilled your beverage of choice, you'll be able to get the recording so you could be able to rewatch any part of this. So you should hopefully get that by the end of the day, if not within the next 24 hours or so, hopefully. Also, we are going to be taking questions today, so please use the question function, the Q&A function. We'll get to as many of them as we can towards the end of the session, and if there's something that we don't answer live, we will definitely follow up with you and get answers to your questions. So with that, let's go ahead and, well, I'm going to go ahead and have the speakers, each of them introduce themselves. So Wade, let's start with you. A little bit about yourself, what you do, and some interesting fun fact as well.
Well, I thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I'm Wade Barasoff. I'm Director of Product here for our data protection space here at Fortra. You know, a little fun fact about me, because GoTo doesn't blur out the backgrounds, you can probably guess by now that I'm a bit of a science fiction fan and aviation fan. I'm a pilot, and anything actually technology related, early adopter of technology, anything like that, I go diving headfirst into it. If you want to know how well it goes, you can just ask my wife. Generally, it's pretty good, though.
Great. So
nice.
I'm Josh.
Josh, you're up.
Let's do it. I'm Josh Davis. Really pleased to be here talking about this today. I'm Principal Technical Manager for Fortra with focus on MDR and Managed WAF. I used to be a security analyst, and that's really where all my experience comes from. And now I do less hands-on keyboard stuff, but I get to work really closely with the product team, with some of the messaging people to make sure that we're kind of staying true to technical norms of what it is that we're doing in the cybersecurity world. Fun fact, I don't know, I'm not quite... My stuff behind me, you've got a bit of music. If anyone can pick out what that album cover is and the back right, it's quite distinctive. So I think we'll leave that one in there. And before I went to cybersecurity, I wanted to be a radio DJ. So I actually have a Sony Radio Award, but that is a whole nother life ago.
Nice, good stuff. And myself, Antonio Sanchez, Principal Cybersecurity Evangelist here at Fortra. I'm part of the corporate marketing team. Been here, well, came in through an acquisition and kind of had a number of different roles and functions around here. Fun fact about me, this is one that I've used actually before when I've done presentations in person, but between the name Antonio is something that's a real popular name with my family and my wife's side of the family. It's so popular that between both of our families, there's 7 people with the first name of Antonio in our families. That doesn't include the ones that have it as a middle name, but yeah, 7 Antonios. Some of my colleagues know me as the 7 Antonios guy, and I've even gone to shows where people say, "Hey, you're that 7 Antonios guy." I have no idea what I said before, but they knew I was 7 Antonio. So, and I'm a soccer nerd or football nerd, depending on what part of the world that you're in. But that's me. All right, so here's what our agenda is going to look like. So like I said, this is our inaugural survey. So we'll be going over the highlights. We'll be kind of looking a little bit more at some of the results of those things. The survey actually, for being inaugural, we had quite a few responses. We had over 400 people that responded to this one. North America, Latin America, Europe, Middle East, Africa, Asia Pacific. I mean, pretty much all the regions were represented in this particular survey. And so, you know, I mean, the goal was to uncover the challenges that security professionals are facing or have faced over the past year and what they're going to be focusing on in the upcoming year. And like I said, we'll take some questions here at the end as well and provide some guidance for folks that are on as well. So whether you're new to cybersecurity or you've been in cybersecurity for a while, we're hoping that you're able to take something away from what you hear today. just a few of the themes that came out in the survey before we actually get into some of the questions and looking at the questions themselves, is it really kind of go into these 4 buckets. Phishing and smishing, top of mind, especially with artificial intelligence and social engineering attacks. So we'll dive into that just a little bit more. Going down a hybrid world, so organizations are still going to maintain their on-premise footprint. So we'll be looking at a little bit more around that and what people had to say about that. Consolidation, vendor consolidation is definitely a focus. People trying to simplify and streamline their operations. And of course, people are seriously considering or looking at outsourcing a portion of their operational burden and looking to partners, trusted partners, to be able to help them on their security journey and maintaining or improving their security posture. So these are sort of the 4 themes that rose to the surface from the actual questions themselves. And we're going to go get into them, into some of the questions, specifically kind of what they answered. We're not going to go over everything. There were several questions on the survey, but you will be able to get an opportunity. We will send you a link where you can download the actual full survey if you want to read the full survey itself and kind of all the results. But the first one, Wade, I'm going to go ahead and start with you. But the top question that we wanted to hear from folks is, what are the top 5 security risks facing your organization in the next 6 to 12 months? And it wasn't too surprising to see the top answer being phishing, smishing, followed by malware and ransomware. I mean, that's consistent with the Verizon report that came out several months ago. So, Wade, your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, what's actually kind of funny is if you actually look at the top bars here, everything actually circles around loss. No matter what it is or what it is, how you're approaching, everything that we see here is loss. Phishing, smishing, you want to be able to get into and get into a network and start doing naughty bits within there. Malware, ransomware, same thing. So accidental loss. It's just, how is the loss happening? Is it being a coercive loss, or is someone accidentally pushing the wrong button? And so when organizations are looking at their most valuable asset, which has now been said over and over again, is data. That's why this is the top of the target. And look at something like ransomware. What is the first step in most ransomware attacks now? It's exfiltrating data. So that way they can encrypt your environment, ransom your environment back, then ransom your data back afterwards. So real consistent across all of these bits is that organizations have to step back and look at their data assets and look at how they're protecting their data assets. And really, that's the very first chunk of this survey. The rest of it, there are little bits that we can approach in different ways. But if we wanted to get best bang for your buck, it's focusing on your data and securing that data.
Yep, Josh, anything you wanna add to that?
Yeah, I think it's interesting with the phishing and smishing being so high up there, that with the concerns about AI and how you can maybe identify AI-based attacks. But really, I think we might, that's something that we might be to park for a moment. What about thinking about what's the objective of phishing that people are actually trying to get? It's either to usually drop malware or steal your credentials. Also, it might be to misdirect funds. So, rather than focusing on the AI piece of it, let's focus instead on how we can make sure we're better equipped to block and stop or remediate malware that is dropped, and also better user security, right? So things like hardware tokens. I think MFA is going to be, we're going to start to see that getting more and more adopted into more of the hardcore types of MFAs with the physical tokens, biometrics, or public cryptographic keys. I think third-party exposure is an interesting one. Supply chain compromise for me is always top of mind. I'm always thinking, how we all we're also interconnected these days, that if one person or one group gets compromised, it really has that knock-on effect. Last year we saw with Okta a few that didn't spiral out to everybody, but it had a bit of consequences, and there's always the big say if you look further back. People are being more aware, they're being more diligent with asking, what are you connected into, what SaaS providers are you relying on? And so I think that's something we're going to continue to see. And the final piece may be 0 days attacks. I spent a lot of time with those, looking at those, and I think it's been, I'm not sure if it was quite a record year this year, but it was certainly very high. Last time I checked, the record was up to 69 for 2023. It might have increased. So there's also a record year for vulnerabilities that weren't 0 days. So there are more and more ways for attackers to kind of compromise you, more and more avenues in. So it's making things more difficult, and that kind of explains some of the challenges of skill shortage evolving technology being linked to that, because there's more to cover and not enough people to do it.
Right, absolutely. I mean, a lot of this stuff is very much related. I mean, Wade, you hit it on the head. People are going after the data because everybody knows nowadays that data is the new oil of an organization. That's what they're after. There's different tactics involved in trying to get to it, but at the end of the day, they're all looking for the same thing, which is the crown jewels. And I thought it was interesting as well because ransomware feels like is always top of mind every year, regardless of what report or survey you're looking at, but the tactics seem to constantly evolve. I mean, just a few months ago, we saw the ransomware gangs that are actually now threatening, as part of their attack campaign, they're threatening to talk to the SEC or turn them in to the SEC, the Securities Exchange Commission, if they don't pay up, or is threatening as part of pay up. So I mean, it's amazing to me. The thief is threatening to tattle on their victim, like that's just mind-boggling.
Yeah.
What's that?
There's any lever they can pull, right? That's been the real evolution. Ransomware is the objective, right? It's that end goal, as you were mentioning. And it seems to have evolved into any type of extortion. It's no longer just encrypting your devices. We've seen that with double, triple. Are we on quadruple extortion ransomware now? I think that was the quadruple one that you just listed.
It might be, yeah. It used to be encrypt, and then, well, no, let's download and then encrypt. Well, let's download and then threaten to sell and encrypt. And I guess that would maybe be, and there might be one that we're missing, but yeah,
it's a DDoS attack now. They're just going to spam you until you pay as well. So more difficult to get yourself back up.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we could probably stay on that one here, but I want to go ahead and move on to the next one, which this one's actually pretty closely related to the first one. Or 1 and 2 are related. What are your organization's top 5 security initiatives for the next 12 months? So limiting outsider threats, phishing and ransomware, and identifying and closing security gaps. I mean, those two are related. If you close the security gaps, it addresses a lot of the outside threats. But I think an interesting one also that's top of mind is improving the security culture and awareness. Josh, thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I'd almost see that one, and the one that's 58% improving security skills, as being kind of intertwined. Right? I think probably that on the right, they're thinking more about improving the security skills of technical people and analysts, but it's really security skills of everybody. You all have security skills, whether that's just awareness of what not to click on, or who to get in touch with when you think something might be wrong, because humans are detection mechanisms as well, not just algorithms and correlations and so on.
Wade, your thoughts?
Yeah, what's interesting, improving security culture and awareness has always been a fascinating one to me, because it's almost like pushing a rope a lot of times. I did some consulting in my past, and one of the things that surprises me to this day for organizations that create software, they're not using a security first mindset when they're developing their products. Security is always okay, we developed our code, okay, security, look at it and tell us, did we make it secure, kind of thing. And it's not just what you're building, and what users are using and how they're sharing it and all that good kind of stuff, and how they're interacting with people, but it's also what you build too. So if you don't have a security first mindset when you're developing your code or you're developing your products, like, you got to get there. Like, you needed to get there 5 years ago, but it really needs to be a part of your culture, and it needs to be. It's not an annoyance that you need your code reviewed and approved. It just needs to be a part of the underlying how you approach everything. And using the tools that you have to actually educate people versus just bonk people in the head. Like, what security came into, I've been a part of this for a long time, and in the beginning, security was more of the cop thing. Don't do this, don't do that kind of thing. Well, tools are actually really good at educating people too. So if you actually change your perspective on how you're communicating to people through the tools that you have, educate first, make sure people are aware of what they're doing so they don't do it again. Just threatening and bonking, and you're in violation of this and that, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it lands for some folks, but it's a lot better if you're helping them along to help get some of these percentages down, or in some cases up when it comes to security awareness, really helps round out the whole the whole process from the time you implement the tool to the time people are being impacted by it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting you say that, because initially when I saw the improving security culture, so much of that usually is of the mindset of security and awareness training. Oh, you did something bad. Now you've got to watch this video or whatever the case may be. But you're right. I mean, it needs to be a part ingrained into everything they do. And sometimes that's difficult, because when you have the pressure of having to constantly deliver and deliver and deliver and deliver as quickly as possible, you don't want to do anything that gets in the way of slowing that down. And to your point, so oftentimes security teams were seen as the department of, no, you can't do that, you can't do this. So there wasn't a partnership. I was at a conference recently, and we were having a discussion with some folks that were at the round table, and I heard a gentleman say, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he said, you'll know what kind of relationship your security team has with your dev team if on a project the security team is brought in early and often versus being brought in at the very end. You know, so
Oh, yeah.
you'll definitely know how the security team and the dev team interact, or what kind of relationship they have depending on that project. Do they bring them in early and are partner with them along the way, or do they wait until does the dev team wait until the very end to be able to bring them on board? But
I'd add to that,
yeah,
that how good your security team is often measured by, do the devs point at them straight away when something goes wrong, or do they look at their own code and something they've done?
yeah, absolutely. Let's see here, moving right along here. Another interesting question. Oh, here we go. Top 3 challenges you expect your organization to face when executing your security strategy in the next 6 to 12 months. And budget limitations always seems to be one of the top choices, but one of the interesting ones is threats. They're changing constantly. And then, of course, lack of security knowledge and security skills. And part of that, Wade, I think, we had this conversation recently on another call, is that part of the reason your threats are changing constantly, and the people are having to keep up with more stuff than what they ever had to do before, and they're having to be more generalists rather than be able to be specialists. Or did I misunderstand what you were talking about there?
Oh no, spot on. Like if you think about, I was part of a very large organization in my past security team, and when we started the team, it was, here's a product that you have to take care of and know about. So we learned about it in great detail, and we were really masters of that product. And then, hey, you did a great job, so here's another tool you got to learn now. Oh, okay. So you start learning another. Oh, here's another one. Oh, here's another one. And so what happens is as teams get more and more products that they have to maintain to secure the organization, the level of skill that you can apply to it starts to go down and down and down and down and down. To the point where, I can actually, you look at the two things, threats are constantly changing and lack of security and knowledge and skills right beside each other, both at 45%. Like that should be the scary part here. Is, hey, we went and bought stuff and we have no idea how to use it, or we have no idea how to use all the features. I actually, a personal analogy for me is everybody I think on the call probably uses Microsoft Word, or maybe even Google Sheets or something like that. There's probably 8,000 features in Word, and I use the same 20 over and over again, and I have no idea what the other 7,800 features are. And it's because we don't have the time to go dumpster diving into every little thing that a product can do, even if it could help us. So those threats are changing, but are we taking advantage of working with our products and our vendors to figure out what are the most impactful ones for our organization, and use that information and knowledge as a guide? Well, why did you even create this feature as part of this product? Oh, it's because it's going to help XYZ as part of your environment. So that's kind of the thing that's interesting, is that we need to secure organizations. We bring products in to help do that, but we don't have the time to figure out how to use them. So part of that knowledge or that learning that we can do is take advantage of the resources that you have available to you, even though you have limited time.
I really like that point. I think it's a great one about spreading yourself too thin. But I would also argue for that kind of that diversification of security responsibilities is going to be the future hybridization of roles. And there's a sweet spot where you can get it right. If you're not moving them onto too many things and having far too many features for them to learn, but giving them, enabling your security teams with a constant, focused set of tools that work together, that talk to each other, that they able to then break down the silos of what it is they're seeing, the functions they're doing. But also the analyst, if you are able to work across a few different tools as well, the analysts themselves aren't siloed. It's that where the people need, when they're able to kind of write the rules and analytics, the stuff they're looking at, and they're able to kind of work them as well, they have a much greater understanding of what it is they're doing, rather than kind of playing a game of passing it down the chain. So there's a sweet spot to be had. Diversification is the way it's got to go. We need to find that's done responsibly, and that you take advantage of things that are going to let you they're going to augment your security teams. That lack of staff really stands out to me as someone who's worked in as a security analyst in managed service providers. Being able to augment security teams and take away a lot of the kind of bread and butter responsibilities, and then allow their internal security teams to focus on the really high value tasks that are maybe super specific to their own organization, their own threat profile. That for me is the way to have a successful security strategy that is future proof.
Yeah, Wade. I was just thinking about your example of the Word doc or the Google Sheets doc. You use the same 20 things, so whatever that percentage comes out to be, let's say it's 5% of Word, there's a whole bunch of other stuff. You may end up even having a plugin of some sort that you either use for free, or maybe that you bought, that does something else, when probably it already does it natively within Word. We just, for whatever reason, either don't know how to use it, haven't taken the time to use it. So you actually are paying for overlapping functionality that may already be part of Word or for Google Sheets or something like that, because, well, this is easier for me to use, or I heard of what this thing does right here, and then you end up with a bunch of sprawl. And we see that happen all the time with customers. Do the same thing. A new threat comes in, there's a new category, there's a new tool for that, and they do that. And sometimes they don't realize, oh, my product that I already have, or one of the products that I've already invested in, can already address this function. It addresses it in this way. So you're kind of the same thing, where you have all these sophisticated tools, but you only have 5% of using them. And nowadays, I mean, with the emergence of AI, how long did we go before saying AI? We went a while, so that was pretty good, because it seems like AI is everywhere. AI is going to do it all. It's going to take care of everything. It's going to take care of the headcount limitations and the resource limitations. I'm kidding here, obviously. And it makes me wonder, in the next, as conference season is about to get rolling here soon, how many things we're going to see about, use AI, and you could be able to address your headcount limitation, or your skills limitation, or your shortage, or whatever it is, because of our AI thing. And it's and Josh, we were having a conversation about this, about being careful about adopting AI too fast.
Yeah, I think I can summarize it that we kind of settled on that the burden of accuracy for defenders is so much higher than it is for attackers. So though we're seeing attackers really use AI to advance their capabilities, it doesn't matter if they're wrong 100 times and right one. Security is the converse. We have to be really accurate and really precise. So that's why rushing to AI is going to be dangerous, right? If you're locking people out of systems as a defensive tool, or as a defensive analyst, you're performing the function that we're trying to avoid, but from an attacker kind of compromising and taking down the systems. So yeah, burden of accuracy is really high. Be careful, but don't hesitate entirely.
Yeah, you're still going to need the people to watch over that. Moving right along, how are you planning to implement Zero Trust across your extended environment? We had, let's see here, 30%, that dark green. Hopefully you can read it, but if you can, we're partnering with multiple security providers to build a roadmap to implement Zero Trust. That was 30%. 25%, we're not yet ready to implement Zero Trust due to the lack of resources and the skills needed. 23%, we have already started implementing Zero Trust, and 22%, we're not ready to implement Zero Trust due to operational complexities. Zero Trust. I mean, people also say Zero Trust is a unicorn, right? I mean, are we ever going to get there? Is anybody ever going to get there? Is the juice worth the squeeze to try and get there? Like, what's it going to cost somebody to try to get there? Wade, I mean, I know you've been in a role in the past where that was one of the things you were thinking about.
Yeah, like it's I like how you call it a unicorn, because like it as a framework, it's fabulous. But if you go to a show, or people see my face and will talk to me, kind of thing, and when they bring up zero trust, it's kind of like, yeah, we were told to do zero trust, we have no idea what to do. And I always laugh. I'm just kind of like, well, you could do it if your company was started in the last 4 or 5 years and you actually had that intention when you started the company from scratch. But that's generally not where we're at. We've got old data centers. We've got, quickly push stuff to the cloud thanks to COVID. And now we've got this hodgepodge network that now we're going to say, oh, let's throw zero trust on top of it. So what's interesting is that it's like anything in technology. I don't know anything in technology that's 100%. Nothing. So are you going to 100% implement zero trust across your environment? Probably not, because it's difficult in some cases. In some cases, it's easy. And what vendors are trying to do is they're trying to create tools like, oh, just buy your tool and you can do 100% zero trust across everything. And it's like, really? Is it? So the interesting part of this graph, if you just look at those darker shades of green, zero trust has been around for a long time. And over half of our respondents are saying, yeah, not yet. And it's just a very small pie slice that are going after it. So I think what zero trust ultimately ends up being is it's a great reference framework that you should utilize for what you're implementing now. But are we going to invest the time, the money, the resources, the products, all the things that have to come together in harmony to pull this off 100% across the board? Yeah, absolutely not. I think it's just not reality. And when I still have folks coming up to me today going, yeah, I don't know what the heck we're supposed to do, then that's actually an indicator of, yep, we're just not there yet. It's a good educational framework, but it's just not a reality yet.
Yep. Josh, anything to add?
Yeah, just briefly, I think that I've come around a little bit to the idea of it, because I initially saw it as an impossibility, as Wade pointed out, that 100% type of thing. But I've come around to thinking that it is an ideal worth striving towards. But yeah, doing so in a measured way, and understanding that there are other eggs that you can put your baskets that you can put your eggs in for a good comprehensive security strategy.
Good deal. And this kind of dovetails into the next one here. How are your compliance efforts going? A very large percent of them said we know what we need to do and we're on track to get there. And another pretty large chunk said we know what we need to do, but we need some help getting there. I'll admit, when I saw this one for the first time, I was a little surprised to see that big dark green spot where 63%, so almost 2 out of 3 said, we know what we need to do and we're on track to get there. So Josh, you remember initial thoughts when we saw this one?
Yeah, I was surprised as well. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like 2024 is maybe a bigger year for compliance than others. We seem to have a few new stuff that's lurking on the horizon. And I wonder if when it comes to them actually having been tested on the stuff they've implemented and been preparing for, that number will change next year. But great to see the confidence. I think maybe if you have tools that are able to kind of speed up your reporting for audit times, kind of initially pull and show exactly what you've got and what you're doing to tick the different compliance boxes, then you can have a really good smooth ride. So hopefully that's what the 63% of people are doing, and they have most of the stuff ready to go, canned and ready, and they just need to fill in some of the gaps.
Yeah, I would love to actually ask a follow-on question to that 63% and say, we know what we need to do. Really? How do you know that? Just recently, I was chatting with someone, and they were talking about all their things they're doing for their compliance efforts, and all products they're going to use and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, wow, so you have a really good relationship with your legal, privacy, and compliance team. And he was like, no. And I'm like, well, how are you coming up with your requirements? How do you know what it is that you're doing? Because a tool is a tool. Like, who cares about the tool in some cases? It's what is it that you need it to do? What are your requirements? What are your use cases you're trying to comply with? recently just went and dug through, again, I'm a nerd, dug through, what privacy laws have been enacted in the last like 7 years. And I stopped counting at like 18. So if you're a global organization and you're impacted by and that's just privacy laws, there's regulations, there's state laws, there's country laws, there's all this stuff that we're being impacted for. You need that partnership with the people who are invested or actually are tasked within your organization to provide those guidelines, those boundaries. And if they don't know, start that partnership and start the discussion because they can help it. I had a really, really tight relationship with my compliance and privacy teams in the past. And they were a gold mine for guiding us on what it is that we should do and what makes the company feel safe. Because what's the difference between 3 different financial services institutions when it comes to compliance? Their appetite for risk. You can have the same tool implemented 3 different ways because each organization is going to have a different appetite for risk and how they interpret these laws, rules, regulations, all that type of stuff. So they're like a key partner to you to help guide you on this journey. So I'd love to just have a follow-up survey on that one.
Yep, absolutely. All right, I'm gonna kind of speed up here through the next few slides because let's see here, because my fault, actually, I wasn't keeping an eye on the time. And I want to be respect people's time, but it's just fun when we're talking in on some of these things. But I'll speed this up along here. Best describe your cloud strategy. I think there's no surprise that we saw most everybody, 3 out of 4, talking about hybrid cloud, hybrid environment being cloud plus on-premise. They can't get rid of whatever their on-premise systems are. They're going to have some sort of footprint, regardless of what their strategy was. And for the ones that didn't have any plans to move to the cloud, they had some challenges, security concerns being the top thing. Wade, your thoughts?
Yeah, obviously it's really country specific. North America is very focused on cloud. You start going to EMEA, APAC, LATAM and stuff like that. They're still very much on-prem. And it fluctuates by industry too. So it depends on what region of the world you happen to be in, on how big your cloud strategy is impacting your organization.
Josh, anything to add? Did we lose Josh? I can't see him.
Josh is quiet.
Oh, forgive me. I've had a bit of a cold. I've a little cough.
I wasn't going to see that though if you kept going.
So I think the hybrid stuff is what really stands out. The fact that we've seen this kind of pendulum swing to one cloud provider, then to another one, and it kind of that pendulum keeps swinging back and forth. And some people even start pulling some things more on premise. But 100%, I think we're going to be settled into that hybrid environment, and that presents different challenges as well, because yes, it's best of breed technology for what it is you're trying to achieve for your users, more than likely, but then it poses different challenges. Wade, you talk that example about the features of Office versus a G Suite is very poignant again, because even sometimes things that do exact same functions have different names, which makes it sometimes difficult to kind of correlate this information and see it as the similar thing. I really struggled with cloud early on as an analyst until I spent a time going into all of the different courses to understand, it's all just the same concept, the same pieces hidden behind a different kind of superficial wrapper. So yeah, I think XDR extending that visibility across everything is really something that is why we've seen that big boom in the extended piece, because we are in so many different places now. We need to extend our security into all the places that we operate. Otherwise, we open up risks to the entire stack.
Good deal. Here was an interesting one. What best describes your cybersecurity staffing strategy? You select all that apply. It was great to see that that organizations are actually taking the bull by their horn, so to speak, and they're owning that function on improving the skills of their staff, because they're seeing the challenges that it is to not only find people, but to keep people and develop those people. Josh, I'm sure this one kind of goes into your wheelhouse, since you actually came from that world.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think, 100% I talked about the kind of value of the managed security pieces of being an augmentation rather than a replacement for your security team. That's certainly the evolution that I've seen. And so you kind of, these things go hand in hand. You improve the skills of your staff while having a managed service provider kind of hold the hand and keep the lights on for that process. I also do some stuff outside of work where I help people kind of get into cybersecurity, get their first role, having come from an unorthodox past myself. So I think what's interesting is this skill gap that we're seeing that people are trying to address by improving the skills is now moved to the middle and the top ends of the roles. So it's difficult to fill those kind of high level security functions and tasks, especially as we've talked about people getting burned out for being asked to do too much and kind of going on to greener pastures or going on to maybe a calmer way of life because they have some really valuable skills. They don't need to be overworked. So it's about giving opportunities to the people coming up as well, using people in your lower more the entry level roles, and maybe shadowing them and pulling them up along with the middle and top people. That's the only way you're going to fill that skills gap that's much higher than it used to be.
All right, good deal. And let's get into a few of the key takeaways. So Wade, do you want to go ahead and start us off here?
Yeah, honestly, as much of an advance as we are as far as all these products, tools, things that we need, getting back to basics in a lot of cases is key. You can't buy your way out of the problems that we have. So, Security 101, making sure that you actually have an education campaign. How many organizations have you walked into or been a part of where the education campaign is a 30-minute video that you have to watch, and then that's it. That's all you get for the entire year. People are people. We need to have constant reinforcement using different methods to be able to start, sinking in what is that we should do and what we shouldn't do. And so when we talk about emphasizing like Security 101, I always go back to the basics in that you have to start with the people. The people behind those keyboards, those are your most valuable assets. So you have to target those first. And yep, tools are going to help. Tools are going to help build the perimeters, help build some of the boundaries and provide some of that electronic feedback and enforcement, but you have to start with those people.
Josh?
Yeah, sure. So I think Emphasize Security 101 is a really interesting one because that's really broad, and I think it's understanding into the basics well. For me, also means it's not just focusing on the coolest and latest threat of the day. It's also understanding that exploits from 2017 are still being used in ransomware attack sequences, and looking at what you have, what inherent risks you have in your stack, and what you should be doing to threat model to understand how it is they get from point 1 to point 10, where they kind of hit the crown jewels, so to speak, and then plug in all those gaps responsibly rather than just focusing on the latest attention grabbing thing that maybe someone in the boardroom might have heard about and really wants you to focus on. So for me, that's what Security 101 is also about. And investing in the people, I think that's something that is super important, and probably don't see it enough. People need to be invested in a security profession because they need to be challenged. They need to see personal development in order for them to be happy and be content with staying. You might think, hey, I want to keep them where they're at because they're so crucial for what I need them to do, and the responsibility they're doing is working really great. But if you don't invest in them and kind of enable them to grow and evolve, then you're going to see them do that horizontally, laterally, move elsewhere to another organization. So I think good security analysts are going to want to advance and going to want to learn. That's the top skill for security professional, is having that ability to learn quickly and the desire to learn. So you need to enable that as part of as a hiring manager or as a leader to make sure you keep the best people.
Yeah, and I'll just the last thing, and keep in mind with all that stuff that you see on the screen and things that we've talked about so far, change is really hard, and it's very discouraging too. So when you try to go after some of these things in your security organizations and you start getting to that resistance, that's normal. Resistance is normal. It's how you work it and continuously work it that you start to break those barriers down, because the immediate reaction to a new security product or something that's managing people is, oh, this is terrible, get this off of my endpoint immediately. And business leaders will throw up their hands and start, pounding on the CISO to say, this is impeding our business. But it's imperative to your business at the same time, right? So don't get discouraged by it. make sure that you're continuously working it. And education is key. Education, examples, and working those use cases that you have.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm looking at the questions that have come in. I want to make sure I get to a few of these before we run out of time here. But one person wrote in that there was a local survey that was done. 1,920 professionals said 83% saw no company-sponsored security training since 2008. It was a last 15-year survey. That's just mind-boggling to me. Wow.
Yeah,
Oh, dear.
yeah. It's consistent though, right?
Yeah.
I've experienced the exact same thing too. And if anybody out there thinks that, that 30-minute HR-led training thing, the beginning of every year is sufficing, it's just not, it's not. And so I always use the rule of 6. You have to communicate the same message 6 different ways before people will even catch it. So, be creative about it too. Education classes, videos, text, email, whatever it is that you have available in your organization. Use multiple vehicles to communicate the same message, and you'll actually start to move the needle.
Here's a question that came in. Best of breed or consolidation, which is the better avenue? This one might be a loaded question, but Josh, you wanna take a stab at that one?
Yeah, it's an interesting. I think we alluded to it earlier with Wade and my discussion about trying to buy all the best tools that solve all the problems that you might have, and then you get a whole load of different tools that will do certain things fantastic, and there'll be overlap between loads of them. But then when it comes down to it, are you really able to get the value out of them? Do you have unless you're like a military organization, your best of breed probably isn't a realistic approach for you. You have to be realistic with what resources you have, and buying tools is easy. Hiring staff, training them up and retaining them is much more difficult, and those two things have to go hand in hand to get the value out of the tool. So there's a sweet spot to be had, I think. Consolidation, look to see what your biggest concerns are, your biggest challenges, and then make sure you find stuff that really works for that, and then look to see what can complement it as well, and understand, if I am going to choose, I go with this, I think it's best of breed. What am I missing out for? Maybe one that maybe isn't quite as good as that piece, but is able to talk with this and is able to my analysts are able to kind of hit the ground running with it as well. Understand what your use case is, rather than just thinking buying more stuff, buying the shiniest, newest thing is going to make me safe.
Yeah. I always go back to use cases. I don't know how many times I've been a part of an organization in which it's kind of like, oh, well, company X has, 8,000 things in one product. We're going to go to that because it's cheaper. And then they get into and they realize they're compromising their top 3 use cases because the product can't do it. Like, you have to really evaluate what's important to you, and then you have to make sure whatever it is that you're looking at doing is meeting your needs. And I know that sounds really, really simple. It's like yeah, thank you, Captain Obvious. But the reality of it is, the number of times I've run into the same thing over and over and over again is like, oh, well, we're going to go to this consolidated product from one company, and then all of a sudden now you're compromising. As soon as you find yourself in that compromised situation, and someone like maybe a CFO has made the decision to go to one company product kind of thing because it's quote unquote cheaper. There's expense to not covering those use cases too, right? So we can't just look at it as what's the money that we're giving to a product or a tool. It's because we can't cover these use cases, what are we opening ourselves up for risk and expense? And again, I know it's a hard conversation. I've had it myself with senior leaders, but you have to constantly be be vigilant of that, because otherwise you'll end up in a compromised situation that you don't want to be in.
Yep, absolutely. The use cases are key to ask. In fact, somebody actually sent a question in the chat. How much is practice of people branding everything as zero trust, no matter if it only addresses 10 to 15% of the framework? And isn't that every single framework, right? Every single framework you could say that about. Like, you have to ask those questions. What does this do? What use case does this solve for me? Or I need these use cases solved for me. Can your product, X, be able to address these for me? I mean, those are the questions that, got to peel back the onion a little bit, right?
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely.
I do some work with kind of some of the messaging pieces, and I'm always a big fan of responsible messaging, right? If you ask a security analyst, they are going to be the most cynical about you getting compromised because they know what the reality is. But yeah, we still see organizations pushing tools that are going to eliminate risk, completely stop threats in their tracks. And I understand the power of that, to somebody who maybe is not fully clued up to kind of see that, hey, why don't we go with the one who says they can solve everything? But the reality is that it's a defense in depth approach. You're taking as many steps as you can to, my friend works in engineering and on a building site, and he'd said, oh, you talk about defense in depth. I think that's like the Swiss cheese approach we do for health and safety, where you layer different pieces of Swiss cheese and eventually there aren't that many holes. So that's what it's all about, really. Find different solutions and different tools and processes that are going to give you the best defense to catch something early, at the middle, or maybe later on, so you can respond to it before you're hitting those news headlines.
Yep, absolutely. And we're at time here. There's going to be a short survey right at the conclusion of this webinar, so if you could take 30 seconds to fill it out, we'd greatly appreciate it. But I want to thank you, Wade. I want to thank you, Josh, as well. I want to thank all the people that hung around and watched this. So appreciate you hanging on with us. I hope you were able to find something insightful. If we didn't get to your question, we'll follow up with you. With that, we're going to go ahead and sign off. So thank you all for joining and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.